So, I'm in a Zoom meeting, and it's a really big Zoom meeting. Lots of little heads and little squares, lots of movement, lots of color, and I'm distracted. The truth is, I can be distracted in a Zoom meeting just with one person. Like this one time, I was meeting with someone, and he had a big black and white photo on the wall behind him. I couldn't tell what the photo was of because he'd positioned his head right in the center of it. But there were these two big black things sticking up in the photo right behind his head. So they ended up looking like rabbit ears. I'm looking at him and I'm thinking, it's like I'm talking to a giant rabbit. And another time, I was meeting with somebody and he had positioned himself right in front of a floor lamp. I knew it was a floor lamp. Three long metal rods arcing off to the right, big bulbous circles at the end of each where the light bulb was. But the way he positioned himself, it looked like they were coming right out of the top of his head. They looked like giant antennae. I'm meeting with him and I'm thinking, it's like I'm talking to a giant bug. And lots of the time, people position themselves right in front of a window. They've got their back to the window, the laptop set up so the camera's looking out the window. And I can see the lovely yard. I can see the dog, the kids on the swing set, the birds. Gosh. And other times, it's something on the wall behind the person. And I can see what it is. I know what it is. But if it's really interesting and beautiful, I'm paying more attention to that than to the person I'm meeting with. Like if it's a textile, something woven, maybe lots of texture, deep blues and purples, my favorite colors. And I think, wow, did this person make that? I mean, did they have a skill that I didn't even know they had? Or is that weaving from another country? I start thinking, I wonder what country. Or maybe it was a gift to this person. Yeah, maybe it was a gift and it's got some deep personal resonance for this individual. I bet that's it. Yeah. Hmm. Uh, where was I? Right. I'm in a Zoom meeting. It's a really big Zoom meeting. Lots of little squares, lots of little heads, lots of movement, lots of light, lots of energy. And I'm distracted. I'm trying to pay attention to the presenter. I'm like, Cindy, just look at the presenter. But my eyes just keep wandering around. I'm like, presenter. Blah. And eventually, my eyes drift to the upper right-hand corner of the screen. Because up there is someone eating breakfast. She's eating oatmeal. And she has a very particular way of eating her oatmeal. Lift spoon, lick the spoon, wipe the mouth. Lift spoon, lick the spoon, wipe the mouth. And I'm watching her and I'm thinking, wow, the way she eats that oatmeal, it has a real pattern to it, like 2 beats, 2 beats and another beat, 2 beats and another beat. Boom, 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 boom. Boom, 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 boom. And the more I think about those beats, the more I count them in my head, I just want to drum and I start drumming them out on my desk. Boom, 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 boom. Boom, 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 boom. Boom, 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 boom. And I've got these beats, I'm counting, I'm drumming on my desk, and before I know it, it becomes the Rolling Stones. You can't always get what you want. You can't always get what you want. You can't always get what you want. And I'm in my little counting out the beats, drumming on my desk, Rolling Stones land. And I look up at that upper right-hand corner of the screen and she's not there. She must have finished eating her oatmeal and turned off her camera. And I miss her. And I think, well, maybe it's time for me to turn off my camera and dance. You can't always get what you want. You can't always get what you want. You can't always get what you want. But if you try sometime, you might find you get what you need. Oh, yeah. You get what you need. Oh, yeah. You get what you need.
Yeah, when the whole COVID lockdown started, I just decided I have to have some kind of project to do. So I decided to make a patio and a sidewalk leading to the patio. It's not my wheelhouse, so I watched a few videos, got an idea of what to do and everything. Knew I needed to take a tape measure to measure out some wood. All I had was one that measured material. It was a cloth thing. And I was like, fine, inch, whatever. And trot my happy ass off to Lowe's and I'm measuring wood. So I'm doing this, right? And I hear a guy behind me go, hell of a tape measure. So I turn around thinking this is like a joke, a bonding moment or something. No, he's scowling at me and he's shaking his head. Like this has really offended him. And it causes me to wonder, like, is this the wrong tape measure for this? And this comes from past experience. I have to go to one thing where I was raised on a farm. So the first time we were going to drive pigs, after I learned that we weren't driving them in the station wagon, I realized we were moving them someplace else. So I was like, okay, I was there. I had a button weed. I was in the, ready to shoe the pigs. I'm in the pig pen and everything. And all of a sudden, my brothers and father jump into the pig pen and they're just going, whoa, whoa, yeah, 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 yeah. My dad's doing this whistle thing I can't do, but it's all alarming. It's all alarming. And I'm just like, what the hell's going on here? And I'm like holding my button, we just like looking around. The pigs are going ape shit. They're like, ho, 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 and they're freak as I would, as any of us would if somebody just jumped in your house and started doing this. So there's like, ho, 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 ha, 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 ha. The dust is rising up. There's like chaos everywhere. And so when the war is over, I ask my parents, my father primarily, and I was like, couldn't we just open the gate and just kind of shoo them along? And he kind of gave me a look and kind of chuckled, not judgmental or anything, but I realized I wasn't getting something, something that everybody else in the world got. And I was like, okay, I just don't get this. So when this guy said this, I'm like, it could be one of those things. I'm missing something. I'm not getting something. So I went around Lowe's and I found like the metal tape measures that are, the manly ones or whatever. And I measured and it's like, yep, an inch is an inch. Yep, I was right. Okay. So the project moves along. And as I said before, this is not my wheelhouse. So I'm always a little bit nervous about everything. But anyhow, I get to the place where I am ordering the bricks. And so I go back to Lowe's. I've ordered the bricks, and the guy has a mask on and everything. And he's like, hell of a project. Well, then I start to doubt. It's like, doesn't seem like a hell of a project to me. But okay, maybe I've ordered too many bricks. Okay, maybe I'll just make something else with it. And I was like, yeah, yeah. And then he just like looks at me over his mask and just goes, herringbone. And I don't know what it means, herringbone. So I'm just like waiting. And he goes, herringbone or basket weave? I'm trying to connect herringbone, basket weave, and bricks in a sidewalk. I just don't know. Then he goes, what pattern are you using? Kind of dawns on me then. I'm like, oh, there we go. I gotcha, gotcha. And so I'm like, oh, I'm just like, okay, yeah, no, I'm with you now. I want the white bricks to kind of be like this, horizontal, but then down the middle, I want the red bricks to go forward and to kind of move like a red river. And they move like this and then just open up into the patio. Well, now he's giving me this look, not condescending or anything, just like, oh, like kind of like he's one of those or he's of a different whatever. And that reminded me also of this time growing up on the farm. We're having supper, and where I'm from, they do this thing where they connect everybody in the community. It's like, well, I don't know Becky. Well, of course you know Becky. Becky married your blah, 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 who's the wife of blah, 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 who's the uncle of blah, 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 who was in your third grade class. Oh, yeah, but this can go on for a long time or however long, because I space out. I go somewhere in my head where I'm thinking about other things, you know, and they do this forever, how long they do it. I think a long time. But so we're having supper and they're doing this thing. So I go off and I remember earlier that night that I had seen the moon. You know how sometimes in the afternoon you can actually see the moon before it's nighttime. And I realized that it was like a half of a face. You could see half the face of the man of the moon. And I was like, oh, that'll be cool tonight. So right then, everybody stops talking. And I'm like, okay, I need to say something here to be part of all this. And I just blurted out, looks like the moon will have half a face tonight. So I got that same look. It's not condescending, it's not judgmental, it's nothing. It's just like we recognize this person is saying something, but we don't get it. Anyhow, we've looked at him, now we look away. So I saw that look from that guy and realized I need to bring everything back to like normalcy. So I was like, oh, herringbone, that's a good idea. I might try that. Yeah, herringbone. Yeah. So the project moves on and I finish it. I have friends over. They're like, oh, wow, that's pretty impressive. I show them, yeah, I painted the birdhouses too. That's pretty, and then I was like, well, I painted the bird bath as well. And they're like, oh, okay. Yeah, you were kind of bored, you know. And then, I was like, look, my gate. The gate doesn't drag in the gravel anymore. I learned how to hang a gate. That's when they really lose interest. But anyhow, so a couple weeks ago, the dryer broke. And I'm done with home projects. I'm done with trying to figure stuff out that I do not get. So I call a repairman. And I'm right in front of the dryer because I know they're going to ask like a serial number, a model number, blah, 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 blah. And I'm going to have to like find it. And so, first question, what make is it? And I was like, Kenmore, it's right there. Kenmore, got it. Well, what sound is it making? And I was like, well, here you go. I close it, turn it on. And it's like couple, 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 couple. I was like, there you go. And he's like, sounds like a whatever, I've already forgotten. And then he says, is it a 24-inch? And I'm like, 24-inch where? Where? You know, up and down, diagonal, left and right, inside, outside. I have no idea. So I know I gave like an audible sigh, kind of like, oh. And I was like, just a second. So I go and I get my little trusty material measure, and I go inside and I measure, arc my elbows in and measure, and I look, and I was like, it's 24 inches on the inside. He goes, okay, that's a standard. I'm like, got it. So I was validated. I was a little bit validated. It's like, it doesn't matter whether you're measuring wood or cloth or the inside of a dryer, an inch is an inch. Boom.
He said, put on the fucking cat ears. He wasn't talking to me. He doesn't know me. He was talking to his friends, playing games on a live stream, and I was watching, alone and depressed, and alone in my apartment with my dog, isolated and depressed. The people I used to call friends probably mostly forgotten about me by now. I've never been great at keeping in touch with people who I don't see regularly, and when lockdowns began, I was already in the middle of a major depressive episode that had me leaning into my introversion and not even going to the places where I would even see people. And then I had no choice, especially with my anxiety shouting so loudly at me about contagion. With one or two exceptions, I don't know what the people I used to call friends would call me now. They probably don't even think about me. I think about them, though. It's been a long time, and I'm lonely. In that way, I can relate to him. In one of his songs, he says, my friends probably hate me, can't answer a message, filled with anxiety, always be hiding me, feeling inadequate's always what's driving me, not a role model, that's not what I strive to be, can't go outside, I'm afraid they'd be finding me. But right then he was laughing with his streamer friends. In this time alone in their houses too, at least they can lean on their friendships with each other, playing all these social games in front of thousands and thousands of viewers. As one person in the audience, this feels almost like socializing, or, well, at least it's something that makes me smile and laugh. Put on the fucking cat ears. Now, I'm not a cat girl. Never been much of a cat, but I have been howling at the full moon for half my life. Before 2020, I always kind of hesitated about my desire to put on the fucking wolf ears. I mean, I don't want to be a furry. That's a different thing with all those full cartoonish animal costumes, like mascots. It's not attractive to me, though no shade to those who do like it, but anyway, I have long wondered after some wolfish ears, maybe fangs, maybe a tail. Once, several years ago, I bought some fake fur with the intention of sewing some skimpy clothing out of it, but I never followed through, never seriously tried to make it part of my aesthetic, you know? And then in 2020, I started watching more anime. Between loving the stories and the action scenes and the voice acting, I found myself entranced by the kimono mimi. That means animal ears in Japanese. Characters who are mostly human, but with one or two additions like cat ears or foxtails. Not my first exposure to this concept in anime. I've been watching one show for years that has a whole category of characters like this. One with cat ears, one with a monkey tail, one with skin that changes color like a chameleon. But for some reason, even before I discovered this musician streamer guy with the deep, sexy voice, in 2020, seeing a whole bunch of Kimono Minami characters in a bunch of shows I was watching for the first time when I'd been alone for months, it was hitting harder and deeper. I couldn't take my eyes off those dog boys. I wanted to be them, and I wanted to fuck them too. And then he said, put on the fucking cat ears. Now, this guy has kind of a massive following. His song Cat Girls Are Ruining My Life has over 37 million plays on Spotify. And that's far from being his most popular song. And I'm comfortable with being a weirdo. And certainly he is too, but somehow the whole cat girl aesthetic is starting to seem almost normalized lately. I don't know. Maybe it's just that I'm being more exposed to that subculture now. But he has a cat ear dealer who's been supplying all his streamer friends one by one. And I mean, they all like them. And maybe it's just the algorithm seeing straight through to my soul, but there are people of all genders all over TikTok wearing cat ears, dog ears, bunny ears, you name it, and looking damn cute and confident in them. So I went on Amazon. When I put the ears in my cart, I was kind of surprised to find just how much excitement suddenly rose up inside me. I waited another day to press go, though, made myself calm down, not wanting to make impulse purchases. But I mean, in truth, I've wanted this for a very long time. And in truth, I'm not entirely alone. And I don't just mean because I have my dog here with me and now we can be canines together. No. Like I have since middle school, whenever I go through a period of time lacking in real life friends, I've made friends online. I joined a small Discord server for fans of this guy, and there are people I talk with almost every day on there now. We laugh at the streamers' inside jokes, put on the fucking cat ears, and we make our own. We talk about anime and games. We talk about our kinks and our trauma. When I first started seriously considering getting myself some fucking wolf ears, I admitted it to them, and they told me it's good to do what makes me happy. And when the ears arrived, they begged me for selfies and then pumped me up when I shared them. In some ways, it's really not the same as in-person friendships, but it's still connection. It's still meaningful. That's one of the reasons wolves howl, after all, to find each other and connect when they can't be physically together.
Hey.
Hey.
Happy Valentine's Day.
What? Okay. We don't do Valentine's Day. We have never done Valentine's Day.
Here, take it.
What is it?
What is it? It's a present. Take it.
Christ. Are you kidding me? Why would you do that to me?
Do what? Give you a present?
give me a present when you know I don't have one
I
for
don't
you?
know. I don't know. I made an exception. It's been kind of an exceptional year, don't you think?
Sure, but this is like an ambush. This isn't fair.
Please, just open your present.
Okay. Huh.
Huh?
I don't know. I'm not sure what to make of this. Is it supposed to be ironic?
You're asking me?
Yes, because I'm very confused right now, because I know I should know the answer to that, and I am tremendously bothered that I do not. Do you even know me? Do you even know who I am?
After this year of seeing you day after day after day, wiping the crumbs of your toast from the counter, morning after miserable morning, I think I know you better than you know yourself.
Oh, I know that you do. That's your problem. You don't even know what that sounds like.
That's the sound of the truth, and I know what you're doing. You always do this.
Oh, and you using absolutes again. Always this, never that. You didn't do that when we were dating.
Yeah, 25 years ago. We dated for 10 minutes, honey, and then you were pregnant. How do you even remember that?
That's your problem. You don't remember. How can you build a life with somebody who doesn't even remember?
I remember.
Not accurately.
I remember. And your problem.
Oh, okay. Here we go. Tell me my problem.
Oh, yeah. Your problem is focusing on my problems rather than on your own problems.
Well, under the circumstances, your problems have become my problems. Wouldn't you say?
Oh, and your problems have always been my problems.
Always. Enough said.
So
what? Are we getting a divorce?
No. Do you like your present?
Well, I suppose if I deconstruct the context, yes, it's nice. Thank you.
Yes, it's nice and thoughtful. I actually thought about you.
It's the thought that concerns me.
Jesus Christ.
Hey,
Hey, what?
here.
No, please. Tell me that you didn't.
I did.
Oh my God. We have gone insane.
My mother and I traveled back to the USA from Malta this past July, months into the pandemic. For clarity, Malta's a small, arid island country just south of Sicily. A year and a half ago, far before the pandemic began, my family got the opportunity to travel the world and live in Europe for about a year. The timing was perfect. I was fresh out of high school and excited to spend a gap year doing something I had always dreamed of. It was the end of July 2020, 4 or so months into lockdown when we left. Malta's only airport reopened just days prior, after being closed for months. From the airport, we boarded a flight to Germany, and from there, we flew to Washington, D.C., and then finally, Hartford. We were told by the airport staff that because we traveled to the US from a foreign country, we were to quarantine for 14 days in a safe, isolated place. Now, my mother and I were extremely lucky. A friend of ours allowed us to live with her, quarantining with us in our second home in Vermont. At first, all was well. We had enough food, and for the first time in 8 months, we could enjoy greenery. The peace, however, did not last long. One morning, I awoke to a mouse, sitting in the formal living room. Just sitting there, not moving, not reacting. We walked around it, asking ourselves, what's wrong with you, mouse? It was just sitting there, acting like it owned the place. My mother and I later learned that, in fact, it did. Things quickly spiraled out of control from that moment on. Every evening in my mother's room, mice would leap from the crevices in the ceiling, slide down the curtains, then dash across the windowsill. She kept the door to her room open at night, unwilling to seal herself in with the mice. At first, I didn't really have that much of a mouse problem in my room. I knew they were there, but they didn't bother me. That is, until 2 or so nights before we moved into our more permanent home. Before I turned off my bedside lamp, there was a mouse climbing up the wall of my room, its tiny claws sinking into the rough wood. I did my best to scare it off. Go away! Go! But, like the mice before it, it did nothing. So, steeling myself, I turned off my light and attempted to fall asleep. That was my biggest mistake. By turning off my light, I gave all the mice hiding in my room permission to run amok. Simultaneously, it felt like 8 to 9 mice began jumping about my room. They began to climb up the walls, dash back and forth about the floor, and jump about in the closet. It was a never-ending cacophony of scratching and skittering. The worst thing that happened that night was when, periodically, mice would run on the windowsill directly above my bed. No matter how hard I tried to tune out the furry little men, the noise persisted and grew louder. Then, suddenly, moments of calm. Nothing moved. Nothing scuttered. As soon as I exhaled in relief, they started again. Safe to say, I did not sleep much that night. 2 days later, when our 14-day quarantine ended, my mother and I packed up our bags and left our friend's house. That day, after 14 long days of isolation, we drove away, leaving behind the lair of our small and menacing housemates behind us, only to stare down an uncertain amount of truly quiet isolation.
I've realized how easy it is to get stuck inside with the fear of getting COVID. Thankfully, Berkshire East, a ski resort in the state of Massachusetts, are allowing instructors to teach beginners from the ages 4 to 50. There was a child I taught who I'm guessing was 12 years old. He has long blonde hair past his shoulders, a big blue helmet, and these black crooked goggles on his face. He was with a friend as well who was 10. Thankfully, there was another ski instructor that took the 10-year-old to the Bunny Hill, which is a trail for beginners. So I could get a grasp of this child's skiing ability. He struggled to walk with the skis right off the bat, which meant I ended up dragging him across Berkshire East to the Bunny Hill with my ski pole. We make it to the top, and we ski towards the edge. Man, this boy bends his knees and he bumps his hands together and shouts, "Boo-Yah!" Now, I have not heard someone say "Boo-Yah" in a very long time. So I already knew this was about to be fantastic. This boy bends his knees, goes into a pita stance, and bullets down the hill. His jacket is unzipped and flapping in the wind, which made him look even more majestical. So I meet him at the bottom and I give him some tips, like maybe look both ways and don't forget to turn. He wasn't listening to me though. His eyes were fixated on a more challenging trail called Exhibition. So I thought, with this boy's courageous heart, this trail would be no problem. We both hop on the chairlift, and midway through the ride up, he looks at me and says, "How much longer till we are at the top?" I look at him and I say, "Not much longer. We are almost there." The boy looks down at his dangling skis and mumbled, "Good," under his breath. We make it to the top, and we both ski towards the edge of the trail. And he looks down. "Oh no, I can't do this." I look at him, and even though he's wearing a mask, helmet, and goggles, I can see the fear on his face. I spun, "Let's just take it nice and easy. Follow me." So I began to ski slowly down the trail, and he follows me until he doesn't. He suddenly loses all control and begins flying down this trail. His skis crosses and he launched into the air, screaming "shit" at the top of his lungs, and he falls on his back, and the skis fall beside him. I quickly run down to check in on him, and he looks up at me and says, "I'm not good. I'm gonna go scooch my way down this trail." So I walk back up to where I left my skis, and I end up carrying my skis and poles and his skis and poles while this kid is scooching down this trail. 45 minutes later, we make it to the bottom, and we find his mother, and I explain to her why we are so late. "Oh, no worries. He tends to get nervous on bigger trails." I look at him, and he looks up at me, and he says, "I may just stay on the bunny trail, an average slope for an average kid like me." I laughed so hard when I heard him say that. And it made me realize with COVID, it's easy to get stuck in a negative mindset and see positivity first and see negativity first and positivity second. But I've learned it's important to pinch yourself in the moment and appreciate the little things in life. And if all else fails, sit down and scoot yourself down a mountain.
Oh, hello, traveler. Oh, I didn't see you there. You look weary. Please come rest yourself here by my fire. Oh, hot cocoa? No? Well, suit yourself. Cocoa. I have a tale on my mind. I wonder if you'd allow me to share it with you. Let it stretch a while. A story can get a bit cramped spending all its time up in one person's noggin. Here, listen well, traveler. Now, you may remember the beginning of what we have come to know as quarantine. Or perhaps you do not remember, for many of us do not remember. But at the beginning of this quarantine, it was quite difficult to work at the local shops. Panic and fear sent the shoppers into a rampage. People who were ordinarily rational of mind would fight with one another over a single roll of one-ply toilet paper. Yes, traveler, really. One ply. I know. You might as well just use your hand at that point. Anyway, the outrage of the people weighed heavily on those tasked with keeping the local shops running. Although they never asked for it, the anger and fear of the entire village was unburdened onto the teenagers who only worked after school, onto the husbands and wives who simply needed a second job to help support their families, and onto, most tragically of all, the 20-somethings who barely even knew how to do their own taxes or get a new primary care physician after their pediatric doctor wouldn't see them anymore because they were adults now. And now had all these people who were supposed to be real adults screaming and spitting at them because they don't know when the next shipment of Tide detergent is coming in. Coco. Well, in one of these shops, there was a man whose name has been forgotten by time. His role in the shop was shrouded in mystery. No one knew really what he did or was supposed to be doing. Some say not even he knew what he should be doing well over half the time. It was a thin line he walked, somewhere between management and non-management, a place only known as the middle management zone. This middle manager glided through the aisles silently like a cat stalking a laser pointer. He would often crouch and hide behind merchandise in order to avoid particular customers who were well known throughout the land as wicked, annoying, and rude. But even in all his great skill, he could not avoid every customer. Listen closely, traveler, for this next portion of my tale is not meant to be heard and forgotten, but to be shared in rowdy taverns or around a dimly lit campfire such as this, or on the bus. One fateful day, our middle manager was caught unprepared by one of these terrible customers. "Excuse me," said the customer. The middle manager pretended not to hear and kept walking toward his destination, a trick he learned from his mentor, which works about 20% of the time. "Excuse me, do you work here?" The call came again. Damn, thought the middle manager, who turned to face the approaching nightmare and smiled under his cloth face covering. "Yes, how can I help you?" "Yeah, I was looking for 91% rubbing alcohol, and you guys only have 70% rubbing alcohol. What's the difference?" In this moment in time, the middle manager knew what he had to do. He saw in his mind the smiling face of his father, friends from his youth, and he remembered all his training from both the theater and tabletop role-playing games. It was as if his entire life had led up to this moment. The time was now. Looking into the eyes of this ungodly creature, the middle manager took in a deep breath and steadied his resolve. He did a quick shakeout and vocal warm-up. Then he squared his shoulders, straightened his back, and with a smirk he responded, 21%. Whew, What a ride that was, eh? What happened after that day, no one can say, but the legend of the middle manager lives on through storytellers like myself. I hope you enjoyed my tale and found comfort by my fire. Be well on your journey, traveler, and may we meet again. Hmm.
After listening to the news on a few television stations about the pandemic, and myself also being in quarantine too, I decided that I had heard enough about the pandemic. All the countries were all getting together trying to point the finger at who was responsible for the pandemic and stuff, and it was getting tiring after a while. It sounded like a fucking volcano was ready to erupt. I fell to sleep in my recliner with the television left on. As I fell asleep into it, I started dreaming that I was on my way back to Woodstock in the year 1969. And now, at this point, Desi and I were 16 years old, and a local radio station in town was giving away a pair of tickets to Woodstock to the first person who brought an authentic signature of one of the Beatles to win the prize. So I remembered in my mind that up in the attic, stored in a single box that was secured, was a signature of John Lennon that my aunt gave me for my birthday. So the both of us went down to the radio station with the signature. Man, I was getting all excited and everything and hoping it would be authentic. And to my surprise, guess what it was? And I was happy that I won the tickets and everything and, the whole bullshit about it. So the next day, Desi and I are on our way from Worcester, Mass, hitchhiking to Bethel, New York, with the intensity building up of Woodstock. It was really getting into it and everything. But we were fortunate enough to secure a ride from a young couple that was driving a Volkswagen bus. Now picture this. The front of it was covered with all paint and everything, and the back end of it was all these flowery designs, But the thing is, you could tell by the psychedelic clothing that they were wearing that they were the real McCoys, the genuine hippies of all times. I was oddly concerned that they were not wearing masks. That was a big concern of mine, but they were nice enough. So Desi and I were fortunate enough to secure a ride for them to Woodstock as we got to know our new friends, Gray Ghost and Moonchild. So, as the journey continues, we're going along and everything and smoking a pot and drinking and having a hell of a merry time. When all of a sudden I hear this bang. I turn around and look, and to my amaze, the motor was sparks and smoke were like anything. At this point, it shit the bed. The motor was gone. So the Volkswagen bus with the flowery designs was towed to the garage. So now the four of us gathered what belongings we could take with us, the real essential stuff, and we left the rest behind. And we also, the four of us then started hitchhiking to Woodstock, which was in now day 2, with one more day left to go. So Moonchild came up with this awesome fucking idea. She made this sign that said, "Destination Woodstock. We are COVID free." That was really intense that she was stressing on that point. Okay, so by luck, this couple who had an old school bus that was converted into a camper, and I had a sudden flashback of the Partridge Family bus with all the colors. Well, anyways, back to my story. They were so impressed with the creativity of it that they pulled over and they gave us a ride to the concert, which was really great. We're talking and shit and doing different things and stuff. And when we finally got to the concert, they let us out, and Gray Ghost and Moonchild said goodbye. They went their way, and the excitement's building up. We're now at Woodstock, and we said goodbye and stay safe. So now intensity was even building up even more. Desi and I just made it in time to hear Jimi Hendrix play his version, which was really awesome, of the Star Spangled Banner. And I'm looking around and I'm seeing all the crowd wearing all these masks and the energy's building up and they're grooving to the tunes and everything. But what's really amazing was with the Vietnam War still going on, look around, thousands upon thousands of people are all gathered here to find ways of expressing themselves in unity. Man, that meant a fucking lot at the time, okay? So all of a sudden, I wake up lying back in my recliner. And on top of the screen, television screen, which I left on, said, "We interrupt this regularly scheduled program to bring you an important announcement." I said, "Oh, what the hell? What goes on now?" There is a virus ready. There is an antidote that is ready to give to the people to stop the spread of the virus. That was really great. I was really getting into it. And it was really good. We were all going to get cured and stuff. But what was really meant to me more, the virus did, with the shot helped out too. But what really meant it was all the countries were finally coming together as one to find a cure to stop the spread of the virus. In harmony, like Woodstock in my dreams.
So, a trip to the Massachusetts Registry of Motor Vehicles, long lines, confusion, bureaucratic despair, a horror show, usually, right? But not this time, because this was my son's road test for his driver's license, one of those threshold events on a child's journey into adulthood. A huge step in making me irrelevant too, which is as it should be. Zach was ready to show the world what an excellent driver he'd become, and I was excited for him. But it was the world. The world was the problem. This was March of 2020, March 13th. It was Friday the 13th, of course. The mood was ominous. The shelves in the grocery stores were emptying not only of toilet paper and rice and beans, but the day before I had gone out in search of ginger root. I went to the Big Y, no ginger root. So I went to Stop and Shop, no ginger root there. When I went to Whole Foods and there was no ginger root, I had an uneasy sense of the trouble we were heading for. But Zach and I were not going to let that distract us, not a lack of ginger root or an impending quarantine or a global pandemic. A milestone beckoned. I picked him up early from school. I dodged the caravan of yellow buses and the milling clusters of teens leaning into each other, drifting into the parking lot. The lucky ones, the chosen ones with licenses and some even with cars. I pulled up to the curb where Zach stood with his backpack slung over his shoulder. He looked nervous. I slid quickly from the driver's seat to give him one last ride, one last practice ride to the RMV. "How you doing?" I said. "How you think I'm doing? I'm nervous." There was so much at stake. We took the Mazda because it was close in size to the driving school's Prius, and it'd be easy to navigate through the three-point turns and that dreaded parallel park. Zach drove with steely determination, foregoing the usual pounding bass of his hip hop, his hands tight at 10 and 2. The RMV did not disappoint, packed door to counter with all measure of humanity, people openly violating each other's spaces, a cough here, a sneeze there, not a mask in sight, not even any hand sanitizer. An elderly man in front of us cleared his throat and with his tongue pushed something solid into a handkerchief that he then folded and put back into his pocket. But it didn't matter. Oh, the ecstasy of the unexamined exhale. Oh, to breathe freely the moist droplets of these strangers, to smell their delicious, smoky, minty breath. We were all dancing with each other, and we didn't even know it. Salditt-Poulin, yes, yeah, here we are. We were on time, and our examiner was on time. A very promising start. Our examiner was a big guy, tall and round, named Bob. The sort of guy who could rock a pair of bib Carhartts, though today he had on his official green RMV jacket. He smiled at us, and I thought I saw in that smile patience and compassion, which I suppose is one of the two ways things might go conducting these tests day after day, teen after nervous teen. His lips betrayed only the slightest shift in composure when he realized we were missing a required form, but we got that taken care of soon enough. As we left the building and made our way to the parking lot, Bob and Zach made it very clear that this was going to be between them. My role was similar to the signature on a release form, a mute necessity when the state had official business with a minor. The two of them made small talk. Well, at least it's not raining. Do you do these in the rain? Rain or shine? And we walked into that early spring day, me tagging along at a distance sufficient to show Bob I understood my place. Bob's smile all but disappeared when he saw the Mazda. And when I saw him standing next to the car, I understood how tight the front seat of that compact was going to be for him. Before he would climb inside, he made Zach roll the windows down and pull up on the emergency brake. Then he told Zach to gently press the gas. With a squeal like the scream of a trapped animal, the car inched forward. You're gonna have to pull up harder, Bob instructed. If I need to stop this car, I need to be confident in that brake. From his tone, I thought, oh shit, we should have taken the truck. Zach complied with the brake twice more. Each time he pulled that little lever skyward harder, I watched with a sense of dread, knowing how strong he was. Finally, even with the gas applied, the car tensed with intention, but it stayed put. I'd like to say that this pleased Bob. I had hoped that something would please Bob at this important point in Zach's adolescence and our pre-pandemic life. But now Bob had to squeeze into that tiny seat, which he did. And as he leaned forward to reach beneath the seat and release it so that it could slide backwards, he bumped his forehead on the windshield. I sat directly behind Zach, wordless, staring straight ahead, pretending I hadn't seen. Okay, said Bob, we're off. Okay, said Zach. And he reached over to release the brake lever. He pressed the little button on the end of the brake lever and he pushed down, but the brake lever didn't move. He pressed the button harder and he pushed the lever down harder, and still the lever didn't move. The Prius from the driving school had an emergency brake that you stepped on and you released with a slight tug of a handle beneath the dashboard. And I realized in a moment of panic that Zach had never used the emergency brake in the Mazda. He twisted in his seat now and put both hands on the brake handle and pushed down, his body actually lifting out of the seat with the force, and the lever didn't move. The engine idled. I sat there with the little tiny bit of information that Zach needed stuck in my throat. I needed only to tell him to pull up a little more on the lever, up, before pushing in that button. But I feared if I said anything, it would be instant disqualification. This was not my test, and yet it was, and I needed to trust the process. Bob watched impassively. The moment was excruciating. It was as though Zach had pulled that lever on a clock and stopped time itself. Surely, Bob understood that this was no ordinary license test. This was likely to be the last pre-pandemic test he would administer. Was Bob waiting for me to say something to release us? Was it up to me? Or was this long, uncomfortable silence my opportunity to show him just how deeply I respected the process, the state, how much I respected Bob. I needed to keep my mouth shut. This was important business. A child was becoming an adult. Surely, I decided, Bob would say something. He would free us. Zach brought his hands back and rested them on his thighs. He stared straight ahead. I can't do the break, he said. He gave Bob permission to reach over and to do it for him. But there Bob sat, clipboard in one hand, pen in the other. Come on, Bob, I thought. This is a teaching moment. Surely you've seen my son is a responsible boy. And look at his quiet, compliant father. Now is your chance to be the hero, Bob, to free us, to launch Zach from this tenuous place of boyhood into manhood. Certainly Bob knew the stakes, an uncertain future before us. Of course he understood that this decision he made right now would be a gift, the gift of freedom to this boy and his family, one small little victory in a parking lot in Greenfield, Massachusetts, one tiny success in the shadow of this global crisis. Of course, he would make that simple, easy move and release the brake. And oh, how Zach would drive and charm him and show him that his trust in this boy and his father and the future would be rewarded. Just wait until you see Bob, Zach do his three-point turn. But Bob brought the pen to the paper on the clipboard and he scribbled something. And then he reached down and undid his seatbelt. You can turn the car off, he said. Zach did. And then Bob reached over and he gently lifted the brake up and pressed the button in and released it. And then he turned and opened the door and Bob got out. The door swung shut. Zach looked up in the rearview mirror and our eyes met. It was over. Our new life was about to begin, a life much different from the one we had hoped for. Yo, said Zach, what's up with that fucking brake?
Hey, it's me. I'm good. How are you? Where are you? Seriously? No, I thought the ski resorts are shut down. I know you have a place there, but you still have to fly there. God, I can't imagine spending 6 hours on a plane right now. Oh, yeah. I did read that article. Airplanes are safer than grocery stores. So they're still running the lifts, that gondola? Well, good for you, I guess. That's why you went to medical school and I sell bok choy. No, Mom's good. They let me in most days now, unless there's been an exposure. The other day, she whispered to me that the people are robbers. And I started to tell her we keep her jewelry at home. And she's like, no. They're all wearing bandanas. And then she asked me if they robbed a stagecoach. And when I told her that there's no such thing as stagecoaches anymore, she's like, oh, thank God. I didn't think I was that old. Yeah, we had a good laugh. Of course, she asks about you every time. Most days she forgets my name, but she always asks about you. No, I didn't call just to harass my older sister. I have a question. I've been doing a lot of shifts at the market. The students are coming back, but that unemployment boost, I'll tell you, keeps them away. Anyway, up by the rice cookers, there's this light with a golden metal rim. And I mean, I've looked at that light every day for like almost 30 years. But the other day, I'm just zoning out, gazing up at that light, and I see there's this orange dot on the rim. and I think maybe it's a reflection of something orange from below. So I go and I'm looking around on the shelves, but I don't see anything orange there. And then it starts to get busy. So yeah, it is picking up. So I'm ringing up customers, and whenever I look up at that light, that orange dot is still there. So I convince myself it's paint. It's a spatter of orange paint. And I tell myself at closing, I'm going to go get the stepladder out and go up and wipe it off because it's starting to bother me, right? So at closing, I go get the stepladder and I go up to the light, but guess what? The dot is gone. What? No, hardly anything. Maybe every other day, unless I forget. And then I have to start over. Just whine. Stop it. I called because you're a doctor and I want to know if this is a symptom of something. Like maybe I had COVID and now my brain's about to melt because I didn't even know it. Are you sure? But here's the thing. Some days I look up and that dot is there and some days it's not. Yeah, I'm pretty sure my eyesight's fine. Everything else is great. Yes, the market will survive. Yeah, okay. I mean, I can do that. I'm sure they can get me in. So the snow there is good? Me too. Even if it is just sitting by the fire. Hey, sweetheart, did you get the presents? I know, but Zoe, it's so easy to shop for a 1-year-old. I mean, there's really no way you can disappoint them. Just let him unwrap them though, okay? I remember when you were 1, the first time you got to unwrap a present, oh my God, pure joy. That's when I knew everything was going to be all right for you. What time is it going to happen again? Okay. And the Zoom is going to work this time? You guys up there in the boonies with Bernie? I know, but it's so hard to be a COVID grandma. I mean, if you have to carry that title around, the absolute least you should get to do is hold your grandchild. Do you know that I have not touched my grandchild? Do you realize that? I just want to smell that kid's head. It's all I want. It's like a drug. I crave it so much. All right. Good for him helping with the bath. He's a good dad, Zoe. I'll be quick. So, as I recall, you have a beautiful night sky. Yes, amazing. So, have you noticed anything weird? Well, I'll tell you. The other night, I'm driving home from the market, and out of the corner of my eye, I think I see an orange balloon floating around in the back of the car. But that's just weird. So I pull over and take a look, but of course, there's no balloon floating around in the back of the car. But I see this like glowy planet thing hovering just above the tree line. And I think maybe it's a light from an apartment complex that I never noticed before. So I get back on the road and I'm driving, but that planet-like thing is just following along the top of the tree line. You know, like how the moon does when it's low in the sky? What? No, I'm keeping it to every other day, just a glass or two. I did Google it, absolutely nothing. I just thought since Jim is an astronomer, maybe there's some phenomenon going on, like that comet. No, I know he's a geologist, but you guys have that telescope, and I thought he studied astronomy. Well, that's why it's so weird. Some nights it's there and some nights it's not. Oh yeah, I hear him. Fast time's over. Of course. Kiss him nighty night for grandma. I'm totally okay and cannot wait for Saturday. Listen, if he keeps crying, hello? Hey, good, you? I don't know. I've been missing you lately. Oh, God, no, not that much. Please, God, never again that much. Yes, I can still overdo it sometimes. So you still happy? My God, I can never remember her name. Rhonda, that's right. Who in the hell is named Rhonda? I mean, seriously, have you ever in your life met another Rhonda? Seriously, have you? What? No, only on odd number days, unless I forget and then I have to change over to evens. Mostly wine. And you? I know. That was never really part of it, was it? Well, I'll tell you, I've been thinking a lot about our trip to Barcelona. I know, magical, right? The beach, the food, Zoe and that guy with the monkey. And I swear, I absolutely swear, that was Michael Jackson. No, I think he could travel back then. Do you remember when we went into the old city? Even though the guy at the hotel said, do not go into the old city without him because it could get kind of sketchy. So of course we had to go right into the old city without him. And you and Zoe wanted to go inside that church. And I said, I want to see the stained glass from around the other side. But those streets were so narrow and twisty. When I tried to get back, I ended up someplace else entirely. And I didn't have a phone and I don't speak Spanish. So I thought, how confusing can it really be? So I kept trying to walk back to where we started, but it was getting dark. And I realized the street is now completely empty, except for this one guy. And it was kind of weird because I realized that guy had been following me for a while now. So I think I'm going to turn the next right. There's nothing to worry about unless he goes right too. And he did. He turned right too. And I'm thinking, it's okay. Maybe he's just going to a restaurant or going home. I'll take a random left. He will not go left. And he did. He was still following me. And when I turned to check, he avoided looking at me, but he looked across the street at this other guy. Now there's two guys on the road and nobody else. I'm walking faster thinking, holy mother of God, why can't I just listen to reasonable people sometimes, like the hotel guy? I thought I was dead. I thought I was dead. So I'm walking faster. I'm going to turn that left. And I'm thinking, if they follow me, I'm just going to run. And I had the shittiest shoes on in the world because I thought I was going to compete with the hot Spanish women. But they all wore reasonable shoes. But I'm thinking, I'm turning that left. If they follow me, I'm going to run as fast as I can. I'm going to kick them. I'm going to scratch them. And I come around the corner. And there, looming right ahead, is the church. And there's you and Zoe. And I just run up and I grab hold of you. And those two guys, they just kept their heads down and kept walking. And oh man, then I just started sobbing. And Zoe was clutching onto my leg and she was sobbing too. Oh God, do you remember that? Do you remember? Of course you do. I want to feel that again, Bill. I want to feel that.